Hello viewers, welcome back to the Moose Mobile Auto Repair channel. And today I have a 2014 Chevrolet Sonic, and it has a 1.8 liter Ecotec engine. And today we are going to be doing the front and rear brake service. So now we are going to service the fronts. These are two 10 millimeter bolts, or you can just remove the bottom one if you want. Use a wrench. Remove the caliper. Get that out of the way. We're going to service the pins afterwards. Going to remove the brake pads. Still brand new. Now we are doing a full brake service, so we are going to remove the caliper bracket completely. We are not doing the half-ass brake service like most dealerships do. We're going to do a proper brake service. I know that nobody does this because otherwise they would just call the whole brake job then. So these two caliper bolts are both 18. And the bracket comes out. So we're using a T30 to remove the Torx screw bolt for the rotor. Remove the rotor. There's not much cleaning to do here. These brakes are fairly new, so you probably don't have to clean much. So I might just leave it alone. So there's not that much to clean really. It looks fairly clean. It looks brand new, but just for demonstration purposes, I can just clean here on the hub. Just to clean the hub. You could do the surface here a tiny bit. The hub looks okay here. I'm just going to leave it alone. There's not much rust. I'm just going to spray it down a little bit, and then that's it. I'm just gonna spray a fluid film here. Just going to service the pads and the calipers, which is the most important. You want to wash down the rotor a bit here. We are going to reinstall the rotor. We're going to put some anti-seize. Put some anti-seize on the rotor screw here. So now we're going to sand down the brake pads. I'm just gonna use a saw blade here just to get the any dirt out, or hacksaw or whatever you want to use. So now we're just gonna clean the rust on the contact points on the ears of the brake pads. You want to go through the circumference around the pads just to clean any dust or dirt. These brakes are still pretty good. Doesn't really need too much of a service, just the pins were a little bit dry. The customer had requested me to do the service, so I told them okay, and that's it. So now we're going to clean the clips here, all the rust on the clips. Now we are going to remove the clips and clean the bottom of the clips. And now we're going to clean the bracket now. So if you don't have a die grinder or anything, you can just use a wire brush and just clean it like this with a wire brush if you want, especially if there's not too much rust, and that's fine. So now we are going to lubricate the contact points. There's a little bit of dirt here. So we are going to lubricate the contact points. And we are going to reinstall the clips now. Now we are going to lubricate the clips. You know, some people, they like to lubricate the bottom and the top of the clip. It's up to you. And some guys, in some rare cases, people who live in the salt or the rust belt area, they may spray the clips with paint and let that dry up. So anyhow, we are going to proceed to clean and lubricate the slider pins. So we are going to service the pins now. It's not too bad here. There's no rust here. Really, you want to make sure you clean the rust here. But that's about it. And you want to lubricate underneath this boot here as well. Normally, I use the green stuff here for the pins, but the customer provided me with the Glide lube, the silicone lube, the white stuff. So I'll probably be using that stuff today. So I'm just gonna clean the tiny bit of rust here. Put some of the Glide stuff. It's not what I typically like to use. I don't know if it's supposed to be a yellow color or a white color. So we're just going to be using that stuff. And I'm probably going to get something to get the boot out. So I'm going to remove the boot here to lubricate the inside. And be careful to not damage it. I'm going to wipe this down. Put some of the lube on there. I'm going to insert it in here. May need to re-lubricate it if necessary. You don't want to put too much of the stuff in there. We're gonna do the same for the bottom one. So now the caliper is ready to be installed onto the vehicle. So just give these bolts a quick clean with a wire wheel. There's not that much rust, really. I'm gonna put some anti-seize on the bolts. Now we're gonna reinstall the caliper bracket. I will put the torque spec on the screen for you guys. You can also use the German method, good and tight or nice and tight, and that should be okay. So we are going to lubricate the ears of the brake pads here. You can see, if you notice, that there is a circular mark. So this one goes on the inboard side, in which the piston was contacting the backing of this pad. So we are going to put the pads in the exact same spot. So we're going to lubricate the backing of the pads here. You don't want to put too much. And just do the same for the other side. I forgot to mention that you can clean the back of the caliper here so that there's no rust before you install the pads. Now, you're supposed to do all of your cleaning first before you put everything all back together, because you don't want to get any dirt or debris on the clean and or new stuff. So anyhow, I'm just going to clean it here a bit with the wire wheel. So now we're just gonna reinstall the caliper now. Make sure that the line is not twisted. Make sure it's running parallel as you install the caliper, because you don't want it to be twisted, because if it's twisted and you don't see that, then it will cause a brake failure. So reinstall the caliper bolts. I will put the torque specifications on the screen. I'm just going to tighten it up with this wrench. Doesn't need to be extremely tight, just snug. You may need to hold against the pin in order for the bolt to tighten up, because sometimes they spin at the same time. You can use a vice grip to hang on to this, being careful to not damage the boot. And you can tighten up the bolt. Anyways, the wrench that I'm using is very cheap. It kind of stripped out the wrench a little bit. So I'm just gonna use a ratchet and a socket. You are better off just using a 6-point socket instead of a 12-point, because a 12-point is not going to give you as much grip as a 6-point. So anyhow, they're both tightened up now. So they're both tightened up, and now you just need to do a quick wash down on the rotor, and just to make sure there's no grease or any leftover residue on the rotor. I'm gonna put a little bit of anti-seize here, and then that should be it. Just don't forget to throw the wheels on, and give the brake pedal a few pumps, and just keep on pumping the brake pedal until you get a firm brake pedal before you take off, because you open up the caliper and stuff. So yeah, that's it. I'm just gonna put some anti-seize, and then you should be all good to go. So I forgot to mention that after you're done everything, uh, what I like to do is to push back on the boot a tiny bit, just to make sure there's no excess grease, as you see here, because if there's excess grease, that can cause an airlock. And what that does is, when you go for a road test, it will cause the vehicle to pull onto one side when you apply the brakes. So depending on which side has the airlock on. So make sure you do it for both the top and the bottom, just to make sure there's no excess grease inside there, because otherwise that's going to cause issues. Then you should be all good to go. So I just wanted to mention, you want to double check your work by pushing back the caliper back and forth. You just want to make sure that the pins and everything are moving, and that the rotor is not locked up, or the wheel is not locked up, and then you should be all good to go. Now, typically you should see the caliper moving back and forth. Sometimes if you're not sure, you can push the piston in a tiny bit, and then you would be able to physically see that the pins are moving back and forth.